Hi, I'm Jo Kane, and one-on-one today is Sam Johnson, the very same Sam Johnson that 1 year ago was happily studying at Canterbury University, political science and law, and then decided to dabble in local bodies by standing for the Riccarton Wigram Community Board. In the middle of that became an earthquake. On the 4th of September, one could say that Sam's life changed slightly. Not prepared just to sit aside and watch what was going on, he founded the Volunteer Student Army, an army that now has global success. And Sam, what I want to start, welcome here, Sam, and thanks for coming in after your trip to India. It's become so much more than just about liquefaction, gumboots and wheelbarrows, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's the core of the volunteer army, getting students out on the streets, getting the community feel and sort of empowering and encouraging young people to take part in the community, which is the reason I stood for the community board in the first place last October. Now, it has very much evolved into a whole, sort of a bit of a youth movement, really, looking at the way that young people can be engaged in the community and the value that young people bring to a community. And I think as we're seeing that, as we're seeing the development and the role that social media is playing through all different government, non-government organisations, right through to emergency management work in Japan and through to just everyday community involvement.
So the social media that you use, which is Facebook, which is people have two ways that they see Facebook, the negative and the positive. Yeah. And so this was a real positive way that you engaged and could communicate with the young people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the clearest way to think of Facebook is that it's a platform to communicate both ways. So you can put information out there and then you can also, really importantly, get information back. So something that's been very interesting now, moving forward from the SVA's work, is, you know, young people, we're all on Facebook. It's a sort of procrastination. The volunteer army was just positive procrastination, I like to think of it as. You know, when you use social media, you've got to have that interaction. It's got to be two-way, and it's all based on feeds, and so your news feeds and how many interactions you have with other people. So the way that Sarah's using it, the council's using it, the civil defence is using it. Some of them are using it in a fantastic way. Some of them really should just pay a 12-year-old to sit on it and monitor it, as that would be much easier than some of the communication that is used. You can get a lot of information off it.
So when you set up the army, and a lot of people understand what that came about, what do you think were the key successes, the key reason for those successes?
Teamwork would be the first one. I mean, right from the very start, and I can't emphasise it enough, even though I'm the poster boy for it. There is the most incredible team of people behind it. They keep me in line. They keep us all in line, and they do exceptionally well. Second one's that it was simple. It had to be simple. We put out the call: turn up at this point at this time to volunteer and bring this. It had no commitment. It was instantly gratifying. We worked in large teams, we sent them in, and it really was fulfilling. Helping someone in their house wasn't only just shoveling in liquefaction, but it was that really important welfare aspect of getting in, helping people out, showing them that somebody cares in that really difficult and harsh environment.
Because you hated the idea that students were either a good-for-nothing student or they were all couch beatings. Why do you think it is that people suddenly saw these very intelligent people, students after all, in this positive... I mean, why was that?
It's really interesting the way that it's changed from the couch burning image, and we're going to party. There are parties going on. There's parties all the time. I get invited to them all the time. I go to them, just like everyone else. The important thing is when push comes to shove, students are more prepared to get out and help, and they do actually do a lot of really great things in the community. And just like any student community, that ever since student life began, right, all around the world, there's always going to be parties. There's always going to be that negative aspect, but it's just important to remember that there can be that positive aspect as well. The real challenge that we're presented with now is how do we harness that in a way that can actually keep students involved in the community, but not only students, but all young people. What will incentivise them enough to get involved in the voluntary sector? And we've seen that there's huge power in doing that. It's just a matter of progressing that.
And so, of course, you've got this model, this GEO-op, which can you explain what GEO-op is first to me?
Yeah, sure. So, just to backtrack slightly, there were three key operations from the volunteer army. The first one was the mass deployment of volunteers, where we would put hundreds of students on a bus and would take them out to and shovel up the liquefaction. Once we'd say clean up all of Bexley, we knew there was a lot of liquefaction left, but we didn't know where it was. So we used a mobile management system called GEO-op. GEO-op would we would asked people to submit their property in June. People could ring up the council call centre, would register it in GeoOp. It became a great big Excel spreadsheet, for want of another term.
Oh, okay.
But it put that on a Google map. Then we could assign someone or a particular carload of people one job to go and do, and they'd go to that job. They'd text back when they'd finished and would send them to the next closest job using an online mapping system. So it's really just using technology that was already invented. Facebook, this GeoOp program, which is based in Auckland, and your cell phones. So technology that was already in our pockets, and utilising that in the best way to solve the problem.
So when the Farming Army came in and kind of joined forces, which was incredibly smart, we're thinking about those farmers and the tech. How did that work together?
Brilliantly, brilliant. We, I personally and all the team learned a huge amount from the Farming Army, and they did just absolute fantastic work. And they used a system that was completely different from ours. They used a paper system that worked really, really well, and they dispatched people out. They listed the jobs, used the typical army sort of mapping system that dispatched people. When we combined together and used an online sign-in system, so we could track volunteers to know where they were going for their safety, and that system. It was a great combination. And of course, one farmer with 10 students is a very efficient machine. As you know, some of the students, bless them, are out there in their nice little white jeans and bits and pieces.
So how good was it having the heavier equipment too to be able to move the stuff?
Really important. And in February we stayed well away from that. There's a rule of thumb: we don't deal with machinery, we don't deal with anything apart from students and wheelbarrows, just because of the safety implications that were being thrown at us on high a lot of the time. It was just trying to mitigate that risk, and we just wanted to deal with the students, and that was our role.
After the September earthquake and then going into the February and then the June, a lot of people joined the army. They weren't all students.
No,
Tell me about that.
That's the really exciting thing. Although it's called the Student Volunteer Army, it's more a volunteer force of anyone from any nature. And had the time again, heaven forbid it ever happens again, and as we did in June, it's really a platform of volunteering. And there's this huge benefit, we think, in that model being adopted nationally when a disaster happens, as it already had up in the Hawke's Bay with the floods. The council could run a volunteer program whereby they call for volunteers, they turn up at point A, they get all the equipment they need, they get everything they need, and then off they go to volunteer. And it's sort of a platform to facilitate volunteering that can use a variety of medium, whether Facebook, Twitter, email, all your networks, the tennis club network, the bowls club, all can come together through one sort of union. So if we had that sort of system run in February, we would have actually been over inundated with volunteers. We had a maximum of about 1,600 volunteers a day, and that was at full capacity. So any more would have been too much, which is the student name actually kept a lot of people away. But time again, there's huge potential there.
And it's a potential that is exciting for Canterbury, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it's and that's the important thing for wider Canterbury. We have we've just had snow at the moment, but the snow in the farming sector, when there's just so much power, when you really need some help, a lot of people are willing to chip in. As we saw after the earthquake, it wasn't only the students who went out to dig, but it was all those incredible people who made all that baking and those amazing people that gave all those donations from right around the country. It was everyone together that made the thing possible. It certainly wasn't just me, it certainly wasn't just our team, but it was everyone doing their bit together. It was just one platform to facilitate it.
Very exciting stuff. We'll be back right after the break. Hi, welcome back, where I'm talking to Sam Johnson. Sam, the Student Volunteer Army model has kind of gone global. And you were invited to Japan after the terrible earthquake and tsunami. Talk us through how that happened.
So an organisation called Global Disaster Immediate Response Team from America came to Christchurch after our earthquake and offered their assistance in mapping to help the City Council. Like many international organisations, their assistance wasn't required, but they spent a day with us and sort of just saw how the volunteers were working and sort of talked to us through the potential that there is for large-scale student volunteering in disasters around the world. They then went to Japan and invited us to go, similarly after 6 weeks after the disaster, to see the potential of working students into the same sort of system. So myself and a very good friend and an incredible guy, Jason Pemberton, got sponsored by Air New Zealand to go fly to Japan and with Global Dirt, and we worked with some students who
But you didn't want to work with the bureaucracy, did you? You wanted to get in it. How did you manage to do that under a structure like in Japan?
The important thing, I think, and same as Christchurch, is just staying completely separate from it. So we only worked with students. So we had students Facebook message us and email us asking, you know, we've seen this in Christchurch, we want to do something similar. How can we do it? So we went and worked with these students in Tokyo just to teach them exactly what we did in New Zealand and inspire and just a bit of encouragement, really. So get a group of students together, put them on a bus, take them up to the north and go volunteering. To do that, we had to figure out ourselves exactly how it works over there. So we went up north and we physically volunteered for a week with a different organisation every day in the most gruelling conditions, and it was really emotionally and physically difficult.
It affected you, didn't it, Sam?
It did. It was really, and it still does. It was tough. It's really tough up there in Japan, and that they're incredibly resilient people, and they carry on and they talk about it as their destiny because they've always expected a tsunami, and despite losing. You know, sometimes all of their family, they're the only one survivor with half a house left. They carry on and they're determined to rebuild. And so given even 10 minutes or half an hour of volunteer time to someone, and just, you know, the biggest thing that we could actually bring to them was a bit of practical skill from New Zealand. Just we'd come across groups of kids on the street and they'd want to help. So it's like, well, come on, pick up a spade, off we go, and just get stuck in.
You've also just returned yesterday from India, where you've been to the Global Changemakers Conference.
Yes.
Was there something in that conference that you can correlate with what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I applied to go to the British Council Global Changemakers event, which is put on each year. This was called the Asian Youth Summit. The 60 young people from around the world got selected to go to the summit, each people with substantial projects or community activism. So it was a broad range of things. And it was truly eye-opening and inspiring event. I mean, we were talking with people from Yemen and Afghanistan who are sort of freedom fighters and youth activists, women's rights activists, anything in the country, and a lot of people who work with famine and hunger strikes. Just trying to get their countries to move forward and helping out their communities. And that sort of thing at grassroots level with people from all around the world was just incredible. So we had 6 days at this conference, workshopping, talking about community issues and working on regional projects together. And so we work on projects with developed countries and undeveloped countries. And you know, we really don't realise how lucky, despite everything in Christchurch right now, but we are so exceptionally lucky when you talk to someone, my hero, in fact, from Yemen, who she fights for women's rights because she knows that at any moment her father might walk in and say she's going to get married, and off she'll go.
Sam, it seems like you're this bundle of information coming in from all over the place. How are you going to sort out where you want to go in your life? Because there's so many pressures.
Yeah,
to you now.
The important
Good
thing,
pressures.
The important thing for me is I want to finish my university degree within the next couple of years. I have a year left, and that's sort of high priority. I'm not sure exactly where I want to go in my life. I have a lot of options. I'm very, very lucky for that, and you know, that's because there's an incredible team of us working so strong to make this thing work. But there's also a lot we want to achieve, and there's you know, particularly when the City Council releases the annual plan, the Central City Plan, we'll be looking at what the student community really thinks of that and how we can critique it in a way that and make sure that those students get their say at that time. And similarly with the wider community plan that will be developed by Sarah, is the Share an Idea type event. Not many young people really have, I don't think, been engaged and involved in that. We know why it's important to be involved, but no one is aware how their impact actually makes the slightest bit of difference. So we want to really try and make sure the student community is being involved and that they feel engaged, so that in 10 years' time they're actually going to live here.
Even the word engage is probably enough to put them off.
Yeah.
When you stood for the Riccarton Wigram Community Board, one of your key planks on that was you wanted, and I'll just read from it, stronger connection between young people and adults, including students, with the connectiveness of a community. Now, you've been on the community board, and of course a lot of things change. Is that the right vehicle for a young person as yourself? Because that's why you wanted to get there. You didn't believe there was the advocacy or the representation. Is that the right vehicle for young people? I
think there's two ways to look at it. You can achieve so much without that system. I mean, with the volunteer army, with what so many young people do in the community, they do exceptionally well at engaging young people with the communities and linking those together. Through the community board, with some of the funding support and knowing the links and tentacles into the community is the most valuable thing for me from community board. Although I do struggle a lot with the speed of things, like any good bureaucracy at the best of times. So it's a tricky one, but I think there's huge potential either way.
But have you? I know you know how to work. The agendas come out and the items are on the agenda, and whether you get them in. Obviously, what Christchurch doesn't have a youth council. Are you looking at something that can more effectively engage the young people, or a different type of model?
Yeah, it's not something I've put a great deal of thought into just yet, just because of everything else that's going on, but I think there's a lot of value in that. And we do actually have a youth council in Christchurch, but the level that is engaged, that is involved with is a bit of a guess at the best of times. The community board, I think, there's a definite the role needs to be prescribed a lot more, I think, and I think we, particularly post-earthquake, community boards have been feeling somewhat lost as to what exactly their role is, other than parking restrictions and yellow lines. Well,
it's a time that possibly they should be leading in their community, one might have thought. Have you talked to Roger Sutton about where you, Sam Johnson, see youth, young people, students and their role going forward?
We're at the Volunteer Army is actually going to meet with Roger Sutton in the next coming few weeks. He's asked to meet with us, which is fantastic, and he was at university last week to talk with a lot of students and gauge their opinions, which is a really positive step, I think, and it shows that they are interested in learning and seeing where the student population think we should go. Because
it would be a shame, all that energy, that whole resource, everything that you saw in young people that you see, that people quite often sort of don't actually see it, that is the student. It would be a shame to lose that impetus, wouldn't it? It'd be, yes.
Yeah, completely. And that's something that I really want to try and work on a bit more, is how do we get these young people involved in it? The reality is, I mean, people see our Facebook page, we've got 27,000 followers, but never again will we ever get up to 1,500 people out on the streets to clear liquefaction. That segment of it has died, and that's the important thing.
OK. Yeah. We'll be right back to see what Sam's up to in the next months. Welcome back. Sam, how do we harness the potential that has been whipped into life with these students, not only in Canterbury but across? How do we tap into and keep them engaged in volunteer work?
It's a very difficult question. It's a worldwide problem. That's something we've seen from India. Is, that very question, how do you get young people involved, is exceptionally difficult all around the world. I think the thing for us, and for the reason why the Volunteer Army was so successful, is that it's completely organic. If something needed to be done, we could set it up and it would get done. If something needed to be done, we'd set up a team and it was able to be done. Unlike the very linear departments that we find, and that's one thing we found with call centres, for example, and all the different bureaucracies. You ring a call centre, they have their brief. They don't do anything else, they have their brief, and so it's all a bit of a mucky mess. Young people we hate AGMs, you hate meetings, we hate anything drawn out, we can't stand anything boring. We're selfish, we like instant gratification, and we don't like sitting around doing nothing. And I think if we all just keep that in mind a bit, and instead of complaining that the youth of today are a bit apathetic towards everything, adapt to their way of thinking, that might be
But young people also don't being told what to do. No. So what was the secret to saying, well, here was all this work, and then it grew and morphed into this wonderful... People were happy. And
they were, yeah. I guess they had discretion. Although we had... I don't like to think of it as a hierarchical beast with me at the top and then our team. There's a central core of us, the core team that made it work, and a wider team, and then right down to the volunteers. Those volunteers on the ground, on that outer circle, could at any point say, this needs to be done, I'm going to do it. And they would step up and they'd become the core team. So it was very much organic. And so while we always had a level of control over what people were doing, you can't control people all the time. And if you try to control young people, they will rebel against it. So
do you think one of the keys was young people running the young people?
Yeah, and that's
rather than someone like myself saying...
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to have... I think I recognise the importance of process, where process is necessary, but where process isn't necessary, or it's just there for the sake of it, it's very, very difficult. With the Volunteer Army, we could have brought in the Army, the New Zealand Army, to come and run it. They probably would have run it much more efficiently, but the reality is we wouldn't maybe have had as many volunteers because they were being told what to do, and they simply don't like that. It's very tricky.
Hard one. There's a Peter Blake Special Leadership Award that was awarded to you. You made a comment that you think now that there's an expectation on your future and your achievements, and so you haven't just taken the award. Tell me about your feelings about what you think about that honour.
It's an incredible honour, and I'm extremely humbled. I mean, I was looking at the photo of the recipients this morning and just sort of thinking, if I can achieve what they've done in their lives, I'll be exceptionally happy. And so it's really humbling. But it's not just a pat on the back, well done for what you've done. It's sort of a welcome to a club or alumni, as I think I was quoted for saying.
Yes.
Sorry to repeat myself, but just for being able to be encouraged and guided and have that mentor and support. I think that's the biggest thing that we can provide young people with nowadays, is just a bit of support and guidance, and sort of just a bit of the bumper rails to bounce them back off track if they start going veering one way or another.
So what you've done, in fact, is you've set up this Volunteer Army Foundation and also a scholarship initiative. Yeah. Tell us about that.
So the foundation is still in the process of getting sorted. It's just trying to scope out exactly what's happening.
That's because there's processes to follow.
There is, yes, we do. I do realise that. So we're getting there. The scholarship program. Morgan Perry, who came up with, who's one of our team members, he sort of came up with the original idea to help support one family, and we workshopped that idea and developed it into a scholarship program for every child who lost a parent in the earthquake. We're now in conversations with some pretty high flyers to talk about funding for the program, to give children the real opportunities, some of the opportunities that we had, the members of the SVA core team growing up, like the extracurricular activities, your learning development, spirit adventure, outward bound, singing lessons, your music lessons, your sport fees, those sort of things that parents will struggle, that everyone struggles to pay for. We just want to make sure that those kids aren't forgotten, and we can look after them. Gosh,
you're certainly not letting the grass grow under your feet, or, as we should have said on Monday if you'd been here for snow. Yeah. What inspires you? Where does all this energy and this leadership, or this insight into communities that you have, where does this come from?
I guess it comes from my parents, my grandparents. Yes. My grandparents, they've always been great community people and been really involved. And after the earthquake, I really just wanted to help, like everyone wanted to help, and got lost in the council call centre. Didn't, so went a different route, and that's I think what's the most important, just realising you can do a lot just by getting out there and getting it done. What really inspires me, what inspires me now, is the people I met at the Global Changemaker conference. These people from Afghanistan and Yemen who have bullets flying through their windows on a daily basis, and then still go out there and try and group people together to help fight for a cause because it's their right, and they believe that something can be done. And that's really inspiring. We are so lucky here, even with the earthquake. So there's so much we can do, and there's so much support, and so much we have to offer. I think just trying to do that is so exciting. I love that you see
that you am quoted saying is that you also see these as opportunities. Is there anything that has changed for you that you think, well, I need to do this, or I need to take this team in? Is there anything that you've thought about that you want to do?
There's a few things I want to do. There's a lot of things I want to do in my life. Specifically, it's very difficult. I think the biggest learning curve for me is that everyone is just a person, and it's people in any position, whether you're Prime Minister or you're the Mayor or whatever. It's a person making a decision based on the information they have and the support they have, and that's the thing I try to get asked to speak at quite a few events now, and I tell that to young people. Just if you work hard, if you play your cards right and stay on track, you can actually do exceptionally well, and that this world is always evolving, and tapping into the resource that is our generation is exceptionally difficult, but nevertheless it can be done.
It's great, Sam. What's your favourite song?
Favourite song? Probably at the moment a song from a Little Night Music. It's a musical called Send in the Clowns. It's quite different.
What, the old song, Send in the Clowns?
Yeah, I love. Yeah, that's one of my favourite songs at the moment. Otherwise, the New York song by Alicia Keys is quite good.
I just thought there might have been a bit of motivation in that. I guess that Christchurch is going to, and Canterbury is going to watch you. I think New Zealand will be watching you. And when you go, and we wish you all the best. And thank you very much for coming in today, Sam.
Thank you, Jo.
And that's it for One on One today.